Jim Shaw from the Colonial Times. I'm here with Caitlin Kelleher, editor of the Lexington Minuteman, and we're here for our another installment of Coffee with the Candidates. We're joined this time by Tom Diaz, who is a former two-term member of the Lexington School Committee, a former chairman of that committee, longtime resident and activist in the community. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you, Jim and Caitlin.
Glad to have you with us. You've been through this before. You joined us in the fall when we were talking, and we'd like to have sort of a free-flowing conversation about some of the thoughts and ideas. But it occurred to me, as a two-term member of the board and a former chairman, you probably have some things that you've done as a member of the board that you probably are pretty proud of.
I am.
So I thought maybe I'd give you an opportunity to jump right out and talk about some of those accomplishments.
Doing things for kids in classrooms is a big passion of mine, and it's a reason I ran for the school committee when I was able to. I retired in 2003 and ran in 2004. There were several things that come to mind when you said accomplishments. I'll name three. One is that we were able, on my committee, to institute full-day kindergarten here in Lexington so that all of our children now have an equal chance to get a head start on their education. We were able to introduce Mandarin as one of the new world languages starting at the middle school level. And we also were able to start 5 new in-house programs for students with special needs. So because of that, it's now possible for a student, for example, on the autism spectrum to probably go all the way from kindergarten through graduating from LHS and never have to be sent to an out-of-district school. I'm really proud of that accomplishment, and the preceding two. All of those are things that were difficult to do and controversial at the time with some people, but we managed to get it done in a business-like way, and I think the community's happy for that now.
Mm-hmm. How do you sell stuff like that to the community, where they're not sure if they want Mandarin or expanding the special education program? How do you start that and continue that communication?
That's a really good
all the
question.
way through?
At least in those days I'm thinking of, in those particular issues, the members of the school committee and our debate really were very helpful. Mm-hmm. We weren't all unanimous. People who know those days remember we always had debating going on in the school committee. Even the members of the committee didn't always agree at first. We debated things in a business-like, professional manner. And in most of those cases I mentioned, we ended up supporting those new programs unanimously. Mm-hmm. The point being that, that if you have a diverse political committee, those people represent many constituencies in town. By the time they agree to vote yes, they've had a lot of conversations with their voters and their friends, and that really helps attain a consensus and get results.
How do you bring that in with a new superintendent? I mean, Dr. Ash is in his final few months. I know you were part of the committee that hired him. So you helped him transition in. What experience do you bring to that when the new superintendent starts?
It's going to be a different situation this time. Mary Tchaikovsky's inheriting a system that's in comparatively good shape vis-a-vis 2005 when Dr. Ash started. So there isn't as much repair work to do on things like the budget. But I have some concerns. We will lose some of our central office managers and other managers during this transition. We're already losing our chief financial officer, Mary Ellen Dunn. I learned a few days ago we're losing our director of information technology, Tom Platty. So I can help the superintendent both in explaining how important those two roles have been in the history of the last 10 or 15 years in getting us to the stable situation we have now. Also because I have personal insight into both those areas. I did do a lot of the work to craft the budget with Superintendent Ash the first 3 fiscal years he was here. I am a software developer professionally, so I can help guide the superintendent in the selection of a new manager to replace Mr. Platty, or just with advice of any sort in those areas when those people are in place. Those are jobs for the administration to do, not for school committee members to micromanage. But those are two very specific areas where I hope to help Ms. Tchaikovsky.
Well, that raises the question for me, at any rate, and maybe for others who are watching. Those positions that you talk about, are those positions going away, or are just those individuals?
Just those individuals.
Those individuals, and we will replace them
Correct.
at the appropriate time. But it takes a while to do that.
Well, I think their replacements will be recruited during this school year, because we can't wait. We really can't
Right.
Start a new fiscal year without chief financial officer. But that person will be new on July 1st, as will the superintendent. They'll all need not just helpful but knowledgeable committee members to work with.
Since your involvement on the school committee, you're now an educator.
Yes.
Boston, you're a teacher.
I am.
So, and that kind of helps you with your perspective
Yes.
too. It gives you a kind of a new way to look at things.
I took time out from the school committee between 2010 and today and taught middle school in Boston. Time out from the school committee gives a person a new perspective, something I might recommend to my opponents, actually. The particular case here was important to me because as a committee member, you can do a lot for children, but usually indirectly. So if you're like me and passionate about really getting in on the front line and helping children learn, being a teacher is the clear thing to do. I was fortunate to have an opportunity to do that in Boston, get my master's and be a student teacher there and then teach there for 5 years. That's really something I'll always be proud of, but it's taught me a lot too that I might have thought I knew before, but now I really do.
Such as what?
Well, one of the things, thank you for asking, one of the things is just how hard teachers work. Not enough people can speak up for them, but I will, because I'm now not a teacher. I will say that's a more difficult job just in terms of the volume of work than anything I ever did in software development. And as people in Lexington know who do that, that's a very difficult, stressful profession. Teachers work all the time, mostly when they're not in class with your kids. When I walked into a classroom with my children, that was always the easiest, fun part. The grading and the research and development you do to develop lesson plans is an enormous piece of work that teachers are just literally not recognized for.
Yeah.
So
There's a
let me
lot
say
on
it
the
here.
line. When you're dealing with children, particularly at that age,
Right.
they're at the point where they're sort of developing emotionally,
Yes.
and so middle school is a very challenging time.
Right.
So, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, you took the break, you ran in November, and now you're back. What makes this election different? What makes this next 3-year term? Because it was a short term before. This one will be a 3-year term.
Right. Right. This is, Jim will remember from our interview in October, March is kind of the election I anticipated in the first place. November was a big surprise. That's why they call it a special election.
Very special.
But I still have all the same passion I ever had for serving students in classrooms. We also, and we knew this previously, we have a new superintendent. You asked about the transition. As I expected, we've already lost a couple of our key central office people. In many ways, the transition for Ms. Tchaikovsky is going to be our biggest project. Right now, it seems like the school committee's biggest project is passing the budget and ratifying the new building plan. Those are extremely big things, but helping the superintendent take charge is in many ways going to be the school committee's major project in the next year.
What do you see your role is as a member of the school committee, as an educator? I mean, do you sort of partnering up, do you have any particular ideas or suggestions that you might pass on to her?
To the superintendent, or?
Yeah, to the superintendent. Or
Well, I pass on some of this advice to the superintendent or anyone else. Partnership is the word I usually think of when I think of the roles and the relationships between us and the superintendent. And I mean partnership in somewhat the same way that I was a partner with my two colleagues with whom I founded a software company. One of them was the president, by the way, so he was nominally in charge of everything. But we each had our jobs to do, and we did them. And we cooperated with each other. We were very busy all the time. And that's the way a functioning school committee with its superintendent should be. The superintendent is going to be the one running the schools on a daily basis and the one managing principals and therefore indirectly managing teachers. We're going to be doing our own jobs which are distinct from that. During the day, I was talking about this in the last campaign. I would be down on Beacon Hill lobbying for more Metco money in the middle of the day. Not that Dr. Ash or previously Dr. Hurley wouldn't have been glad to be there with me, but that was not feasible. They were back doing their job running the schools. We were out raising money for kids. School committee members actually don't emphasize enough the kind of liaison assignments they play like that, because we're very busy people all the time. Even when I was chairman, I spent some hours every week on the phone with Dr. Ash, but I wasn't in his office all the time. I was not telling him what to do. I had the last word on things, everything, including curriculum matters, with my colleagues. But partnership means you divide up the work and you do your job and you let your school committee colleagues do theirs and you let the superintendent do hers.
Well, I was saying, you mentioned a little bit about the importance of some of those other projects, like the school building projects,
Right.
the anticipated increase in enrollment,
Right.
And the impact it will have on budgets. Are we ready for that? What are your thoughts on that? I mean, can you ever really be ready for something like that?
It's very daunting. I think the current committee's coming close, really literally in the last week or so, they're coming close to adopting a good set of objectives for exactly which projects to try to do to relieve enrollment. It's called Plan 9 or Option 9 by most people. It's very expensive. It's a project that if we go forward that way, will extend over several years and several stages. Start bringing new classrooms online in September of 2016, and then more in September of 2017, and then we hope a new Hastings school perhaps in 2019, perhaps sooner. Lots of complicated management to do. I feel pretty good if we get that moving forward. We do have, these days, we have something we didn't used to have. We have a professional Department of Public Facilities now, headed by Pat Goddard. And once we set the direction and have town meetings approval, we don't need to be amateur architects and run those projects. We have an excellent,
it's an incredible resource for the school department.
And it's something we didn't always have. I have noticed, if I compare the construction of the new Harrington School, which was behind schedule and over budget, with more recent projects, those people really do a great job for the town. Anyway, I think we still face a challenge getting the school building plans approved by the finance committees, this mostly between now and March, and set up for approval by town meeting. It's a very large amount of money. It's very complicated. I've been through this before, you can probably tell. People will have a million questions before it even gets to the floor of town meeting, and we have to have very crisp, persuasive
I think we owe it to the
presentations and
public
answers.
to be able to answer those questions.
Well, it's good to have that attitude, because the public will have those answers out of you, whether you think they're entitled or not. They will get the answers.
Speaking of that, how do you, tax bills went up this year
Yes.
for most residents, and while that's not related to the school district, it is
It's not beneficial.
right.
Makes
I'll
it
tell
more
you.
difficult.
How
It does.
do you start to sell projects, especially one that would need a debt exclusion, to
Yes.
voters? And explain why this money is needed and needed now.
It really is a very long dialogue. You said debt exclusion. It turns into a campaign
Right.
which dwarfs the size of the campaign in which I'm a candidate. That is a much bigger enterprise. There are more questions to answer. People pay more close attention in those cases.
Right.
You have to have a persuasive presentation of everything, what your overall objectives are. That's not enough for everyone, but
Right.
it's enough for some, and we're not quite there yet. Then you and the town administration, in this case the Department of Public Facilities, do have to have answers for many technical questions. Why does it cost so much? Do we really need these porches that are in front of classrooms like we have at the new Estabrook School? There are a million questions like that on which you have to be informed.
Why a pointed roof, not a flat roof?
Yeah,
Why a
yes.
flat roof, not a
Yes.
pointed roof? Right.
We may not yet be done with some of the tougher questions either, such as how did this enrollment growth phenomenon sneak up on you guys?
Right.
I was asked that yesterday at a coffee, and I have an answer which is long and technical, but suffice to say that I think the people at the coffee were persuaded. Well, it is a new phenomenon that wasn't in our forecasting models that had always worked well enough for us. So something genuinely new happened. There were statisticians in the room actually, and they were in the end satisfied. But that's a conversation that the community will have probably many more times between now and the time they vote to support these programs, because it is the school committee and the superintendent's responsibility to keep an eye on those things, forecast how much money we're going to need for everything, and we are behind the 8 ball this time.
Right. I wish we had more time. We've got a couple of minutes left. I just wanted to quickly ask you to talk, touch base on maybe some quick thoughts on curriculum.
Sure.
And it's almost unfair to ask you to do that in a couple of seconds. I know that the subcommittee or the ad hoc committee on youth at risk, I know that's always been an important part of what you've done on the school committee.
I was going to bring that one up.
If you would, and then maybe give us some couple of parting thoughts about why this is so important, and why, after being off the committee, it's so important for you personally to be back on the committee.
Okay. I want to say something, I hope as quickly as I can, about the youth at risk studies, the recent report by the ad hoc group. Risky behavior and student stress are issues I've been active in for 11 years, I guess, since I was first elected to the school committee. The new report, I encourage people to read it if they haven't seen it, or read the executive summary. It's on the school's website. It's very alarming. We are fortunate not to be one of the communities who has had a celebrated tragic student suicide, but we have a large number of students, an alarmingly large number of students, who said in the survey that they made a serious effort to end their lives in the last year or two. An even larger number that said they had thought about it, they had serious thoughts about it. So we really need to see it as an urgent issue, literally a matter of life or death. Urgency is the order of the day. I have to say, there's an element of this also in the report of the committee. I have worked and talked with some of the psychiatrists and counselors in town since my first involvement in this issue. All of us agree, and the report alludes to the fact that the school department cannot do this alone. The municipal departments need more resources also, and this is an issue that really calls for more close cooperation between the schools and the municipal departments. Maybe we need a new Department of Youth Services that's centrally funded but jointly managed like we do with the Department of Public Facilities. This is one of the few areas where I would actually be willing to see some money shift from the school department back to municipal departments in order to make some progress here. Children aren't always going to go to a counselor inside a school building to talk about their problems for a lot of reasons. The simplest of which is they might want to talk when school's out. It's the middle of the night or it's Saturday. So there's an important role for contractors and employees of the town to play in helping kids get through some of the difficult situations. This is above and beyond what we need to do in the schools to try to reduce the amount of pressure caused by unnecessary academic stress. But I really think we need a bold new approach that involves both the town and the school working together closely. I alluded, as far as curriculum goes, to world languages before. I'm a strong supporter of that, and I always will be. Computer technology has always been an interest of mine, too. I would like to see us make more programming courses available to kids. We have new technologies like this. This is called a Raspberry Pi, which is, it's not a dessert. This is a $35 product you can buy. You plug in a mouse and a keyboard, your TV, and your phone charger, and boot it up, and it's a full-scale computer running Linux with a desktop, and it comes with a little programming system, the Python programming language that was developed to teach young people how to write software. The kids who are now doing the programming electives in high school probably have these already, but because of their low cost and ease of use, they're an example of, this is a technology just about 2 years old. They're examples of things that are now available relatively inexpensively as an opportunity around which to build a new curriculum. I think the kids that are having fun with this thing right now will go on doing that, but it's really a new opportunity for kids to have some fun and learn programming, which really opens up a whole new world of opportunity for Americans and for young people. I'm a living example of that.
Great.
Something we're probably all going to need to know at some point in the next 10 years.
Yes,
excellent.
Absolutely.
Regardless of your job.
Well, Tom, I have to thank you. It was really great to have you. And
always a pleasure.
And show and tell. I love that. You know, I've actually learned something here. So, and that's always a good thing. But we do appreciate you joining us here. I want to remind folks that Tom Diaz is running for election to the school committee. The election is March 2nd, Monday, March 2nd. We hope you will get out and vote that day, and if you're not registered, we hope you'll take the time to register and vote. Get in touch with the town clerk's office if you have any questions about how the process or the processes by which you need to register if you're not registered, or if you have questions about absentee ballots.
And I believe the final day to register to vote is February 25th, but we'll have to double check that.
Okay, we'll double check that. I know that the clerk will have that information. So, Caitlin Kelleher, thank you so much for joining with us today. And I want to make sure that we thank our hosts here at the Inn at Hastings Park, Artistry on the Green. Tricia Perez Keneally is always a welcoming person. She always is so welcoming when we need to do something. We did this here in the fall, and Alexa Ing Stern, who worked with her, has been most helpful to us. I want to thank you all for joining us for this installment of Coffee with the Candidates, and I want to encourage everyone, please take the time to vote. It really does matter. Thank you.